Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'd like to discuss the quite moronic way in which politicians and now journalists for national broadcasters are treating the placement of flags as something that should be seen as a sensitive subject. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news in politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So a lot of nonsense has been talked about regarding the Union flag of late. The Conservatives under Boris Johnson, like nationalistic authoritarians throughout history, have co-opted the flag for their own purposes. Ministers routinely appear on remote links with at least one behind them. The Prime Minister seems to feel naked without at least four. Now recently, a number of people were poking fun at the latest minister to do this, Robert Jenrick. Now, some BBC journalists liked the tweets and at least one then felt the need to apologise afterwards. Absolutely ludicrous. We're now in a very dodgy territory here because the Union flag is going the same way as the flag of St George. You know, St George, that Turkish chap who is a patron saint in a number of countries and whose cross adorns a number of flags in different areas around the world, not just England. But for some time, English nationalists like the EDL, BNP and so on have adopted the symbol for their own political cause. And it's been happening for so long that it's become something of an embarrassment to actually display the cross of St George outside of a rugby or football international tournament at any rate, amongst many people. You know, it's now a symbol sadly associated with xenophobes. Now, if you see one displayed prominently on someone's property, which you do, you can't help but wonder. Not outright judge them, not outright judge them. There's nothing wrong with displaying it. But it is sad, really, that certainly when I go past one, I think to myself, are you just a football fan, a rugby fan? Are you just proud to be English, but you're not xenophobic or racist? Or are you? And the thing is, the cross represents a man who reportedly stood up to oppression. Now, I don't know if that's true. I don't know to what extent the myth of the man is true. I'm guessing he didn't actually kill a dragon. But what the cross effectively represents is that standing up against oppression. Now we have allowed it to represent the mindless oppressors. Xenophobes are even worse than political oppressors like Boris Johnson in many ways, because he at least gains something from his evil ways. Some people win. Xenophobes gain nothing other than a miserable life, leading to heaping some of that misery onto innocents. Nobody wins. Recently, Dominic Raab said that the Union flag represents freedom. No, it doesn't. And I don't mean that in the sense that the UK isn't really promoting freedom when it sells arms to those who use them against innocents, or turns a blind eye to human rights abuses if it's with an important country like China, or even when it has just legislated to remove basic human rights from their own citizens back home. I mean, it objectively does not symbolise freedom. It symbolises union. That's why it's called the Union flag. It is the union of the crosses of St George, St Patrick and St Andrew all rolled into one. It's a shame it doesn't have a Welsh dragon in the centre to complete the set, but there we are. But it represents union. When the UK was formed, there was no new flag to represent the union as such. They simply combined the flags of England and Scotland together. Later, when Ireland joined, and I understand I'm using the word joined here in a rather different context to that of Scotland, the cross of St Patrick was added. And that's what I rather like about it. You know, most citizens obviously feel something when they see their flag. It's part of our identification as a citizen. But I rather like the Union flag. It stands up to scrutiny, I think. You know, in a way, flags in general that emphasise the strength that there is in unity, I find particularly effective. You know, this applies to the United States flag, the Council of Europe flag, the Olympic flag, and so on. And if I'm going to be honest, paying homage to a tree that provides you with syrup for your pancakes is potentially less powerful. Now, I've no doubt Canadians feel as much pride for their flag as I do for ours, but does it stand up to the same level of scrutiny? You know, or is it all part of the same feeling we have for our own flag as a result of the indoctrination we've received as part of our upbringing. But unity is strength. It's one of my core beliefs. The evidence is everywhere, which is why I resent the Conservatives' abuse of the flag. Not using it. I don't mind if Conservative ministers want to have a flag displayed behind them. I have no objection to that. The objection I have is that when someone pokes fun at it, there's a big old dog pile, to the point where people then have to feel that they need to apologise. Because it's a bit like, during the lockdown, we've had a lot of people, not just ministers, a lot of people who've been conducting interviews and things like that from their home office or just some room in their home. And we've looked at their background, and occasionally you've poked fun at a few things. Oh, yeah, that's good. Or even liked a few things, approved of a few things. But when that happens, no one really goes mad. No one goes mad about that. When Matt Hancock, it was pointed out a few things about his background. There were criticisms there. No one went mad. Matt Hancock didn't throw a wobbly. The Conservatives in general didn't. The media in general didn't. But you poke at that, what you got a flag behind you like that for? Boris Johnson, why have you got 4 flags behind you? And all of a sudden, apparently this is a very sensitive subject. Why? And that's why I dislike the fact that the Conservatives are abusing the flag. For a number of reasons, I suppose. One is they are a divide and rule organisation. Disunity is their clarion call. So it's offensive to me that those who seek to divide should co-opt a symbol of unity. And in many ways, it makes sense that Dominic Raab said the flag is a symbol for freedom, because he daren't call it what it is, a symbol of unity, because that is objectively what it is. They hate the idea of people uniting. That is the only thing that keeps them in power, the fact that we do not unite. Various disparate groups spend more time attacking each other than the Conservatives, the real enemy of the people. The second reason is that thanks to the ongoing actions of these charlatans, the Union flag is not simply being corrupted as the English flag of St. George has, but is being abolished. The flag of St. George, as it is representing England, is not really under serious threat. No one is talking about the breakup of England, but the breakup of the Union is a very real prospect. Now, the Union is definitely not over. It can still be saved. But every day that these right-wing nutters remain in power is another nail in the coffin of the UK. It will be years before we are even presented with an opportunity to put the Union on life support with a different government, let alone start fixing it. By then it may well be too late. Bear in mind that the legislation the Conservatives have enacted to remove our freedoms, and the policing bill is just the latest example, there have been others, comes after less than a year and a half of power. Yes, Boris Johnson's formed a government more than a year and a half ago, but he didn't really have proper power until December 2019. Imagine what they will have done after 5 years. Don't imagine that the latest atrocity is them going, right, we're sorted now, we've taken away enough of your rights, we're good now, we'll just leave things to trundle along for 3.5 years. Will we even have an election that isn't a complete sham in 2024? Was 2019 the last real general election for the UK? So going back to the flag humping behaviour of the Tories. So placing a flag behind you in an office, it's not an act of patriotism if you are trampling the values that it represents. Under these conditions, it is actually an act of patriotism to poke fun at it, to attack it, to criticise it. Sneer by all means, but call it out. What do you even need a flag in an office for anyway? What are you trying to show? Oh, that you're a British minister because there was some confusion? We didn't realise this? I get their usefulness at press conferences with representatives from multiple nations. Oh, that one's the British minister, that one's the French minister, that one's the United States minister, and so on, Secretary of State in that case. Perhaps even important state events. I get that, where there wasn't any confusion, but it's an important state event. Get that. Absolutely flying outside government buildings or at ports, but in an office, strategically placed while you're being interviewed for breakfast telly. Grow up. But flags are an important symbol. The issue with the English flag was nowhere near as big a deal as this, because if we've been conditioned to associate the cross of St. George with, white, beer-bellied, racist, xenophobic English cocks, does that really impact on the way the rest of us conduct our lives? No. We either just carry on and still treat the Cross of St. George as just the symbol for England, or we feel uncomfortable about it, as I often do, but otherwise you don't have to really change what you do with your life. Now, I've said before, I never really consider myself English. I am, but I'm also a Yorkie, and I have a much stronger association to that identification than being English. I'm British, I'm Yorkshire. Reason being that I can identify British characteristics in myself. I can also identify Yorkshire characteristics in myself. But what the bloody hell is English anyway, other than geographic? There is no defining characteristic. Whenever you try and get someone to identify one, they either pick on something that only exists in a part of England, or one that exists throughout Britain, maybe even Ireland, Denmark and the Netherlands as well. And that's fine, because the cohesion is for your nation, which is the UK. But if we start to associate the Union flag with nationalistic xenophobia, you actually weaken the Union, not just in the parts of the Union that you're disaffecting that then will want to leave, but throughout. If people in England and Wales feel uncomfortable with their own flag, it dissolves the very fabric of the nation, because a nation needs that feeling of collective to work. If you divide a population up, as the Conservatives do, and those divisions become real, well, you pick away at the cohesive forces, which can include something as simple as a flag. And people will move on from being uncomfortable with the symbol to uncomfortable with the concept, what it represents, what it is. Pretty soon, people throughout the UK, not just in parts, throughout the UK, will be wondering why we're doing it at all, why we're staying together at all, if we always seem to be at odds with each other all the time. And so the very people who have been humping the flag the hardest will be those consigning it to the dustbin of history. There was a time when we called out people like that. You know, when the people doing that were on the fringes. Like when Tony Blair said to Nigel Farage, "You sit there with our country's flag, but you do not represent our country's interests." But now the flag shaggers have control over the country and the media, and therefore the national narrative. If they are allowed to continue to control all three, the flag and everything it ever stood for is completely lost. And if that happens, can we just agree that we probably shouldn't let those same people design the flags that will be needed to follow it? But those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, please also click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.